Okay, I will tell you a story from Europe, a story from Belgium. In fact, the story of my parents. Last year, Paul invited me to come to Australia. I had something like, why can't I do it with a Skype conference or something like that? He said, no, I want you here in the flesh. I will do it. I can manage myself. Okay. I thought about giving a presentation. When I start to give a presentation, I always want a title, and I'm calling it Life After Assisted Suicide. In fact, I stole the title a little bit. Before I came to Australia, I saw a BBC documentary I found very good, and I think it's worth mentioning that everyone should take a look at this documentary. It's called Life After Suicide, so I extended it a little bit, Life After Assisted Suicide. It's about a woman who is talking with relatives of people who committed suicide. And Angela Sameta, a documentary maker, she is saying in this documentary, my experience is that you can rebuild your life again if you can talk about it. And I'm still somewhere in between, I guess. I'm still thinking of, I have to continue because I have children, so I have to continue. I'm still not sure if I can really rebuild it. It's something, I will probably never know. But as long as I continue, I think that's a good thing to do. But I will tell you probably more about that later. I will give you my own personal story. I could give you an academic discussion, but I think Dr. Yule is a little bit less emotional about talking about assisted suicide and suicide than I am, because I'm personally involved, of course. So I'm trying to write papers now, which are a little bit more academic, but I will bring my own story now, and I just will do it with pictures. So my parents, they married in 1971, and I will show you the picture of, here about their wedding day. You see my mother and my father. It looks like they are happy, but I don't really think they were very happy. There was a lot going on, and I think it would take me much more minutes to talk about everything. But my sister was born in 1972, and I will just show you here a picture of my mother carrying, or with my sister, in fact, but you can't see my sister, I don't need to show her. I was born in 1976, and I found this picture of my mother and me when I was still a baby. As you can see, both of my parents, I find them very beautiful. My father, he was a good-looking guy. My mother was, I find my mother here very beautiful. Also here in this picture, I find her very beautiful, and even here. But my mother, yes, she was very unhappy because of her own childhood. My father, he was a physician, but he already committed suicide in 1981. And in fact, his suicide really predestinated me for the rest of my life already. My parents, they divorced when I was 3 years old, so 2 years after the divorce, my father committed suicide. I still remember that day. I still remember the day when my grandparents came to the house, and when my father died. I saw my mother in the chair together with my sister. They were crying. And I understood it. It was someone who I knew, he was suddenly away. He was gone forever. I knew it. And even a 5-year-old kid, he knows what it is, what suicide is all about. Even if everyone who is the grown-ups, they're telling you, yeah, he was ill and stuff like that. I knew it. So I just want to share that with you. I knew it that my father committed suicide. And it really changed me. So I have been struggling, I have been surviving, I have, since I was 5 years old. And that's also my story. It's a story about surviving, about continuing and trying to develop yourself somehow. After my mother, she received a little injection. So after my mother died, my mother, she had a chronic depression. But I began to write about the death of my mother, and that I really didn't agree with how everything happened. And I began to read, I was also writing articles in English, and I began to read comments. My first opinion piece, nobody wanted to publish it. So I tried to publish it in the Belgian newspapers, nobody wanted to have it published. I had an English short opinion piece I wanted to publish in an academic journal. I was thinking like, okay, send it to the Lancet. It was rejected. Send it to the British Medical Journal. It was rejected. So finally, I thought someone from Belgium, there was one newspaper, the Flemish medical newspaper, the Flemish medical newspaper, they wanted to publish my opinion piece at that time. And there was someone who told me about a blog here in Australia, and it's called Mercatornet. And I was thinking, okay, I will send it to this editor, and I want to publish it. Okay, you can do it. I mean, and he called it "How My Mother Died," because the first title was more towards a suicidal society because of euthanasia. A controlled suicidal society because of euthanasia. But when I began to read also comments about my point of view, really also at that time, there were comments like, "You're a selfish man," and stuff like that. And you are the one, you are the reason why your mother, that's also something I read, you are the reason that your mother asked for euthanasia. And therefore I also want to show you some pictures, what I did for my mother. And it is true, a year before her death we didn't have any contact anymore, but you should see the psychological reason behind it. I have been raised by my mother who was struggling with depression all her life. And I know that this is very hard, but everyone was always, since I was 5 years old, you have to take care of your mother. So since I was 5 years old, I didn't have a father, but I also didn't have a mother, because I had to take care of my mother. And everyone was always saying, you have to understand your mother. You have to take care of your mother. And even when I tried, because when I was 20 years old, so I completely understand the story of, when I was 20 years old, I was also searching for ways to commit suicide myself. I always thought, I won't make it until I'm 30. Now I'm 39, so I've won some years already. Thank you. But I know these websites. I know they do exist, but I don't do that anymore. But when I was 20 years old, I did the same. So trying to find methods and really, it's an illusion, of course, but it's. But when I try to start a family, finally, when I was 21, I started to do a university education. started chemistry. And I met my girlfriend at that time, my wife, for 10 years now. We were together for 16 years already. We also tried to give my mother, again, a place in our family. So I really want to show you, therefore, these pictures. Look how my mother was smiling when she was a proud grandmother. Am I really a son who is so selfish that he doesn't let the grandmother see her grandchildren? I brought the children. Here you see the eldest and, Nina. I brought the children to my grandmother. Look, here they are. But in fact, yes, my mother, she had a boyfriend from Holland, but okay, it doesn't really matter where he was from. But and my mother, she was traveling all over the world with this boyfriend. So to Egypt, to Morocco, everywhere in the world. So, in fact, what I want to point out is that together with this was a living apart together relationship, but it was more like traveling with each other all over the world. But when this boyfriend, stopped the relationship, the depression of my mother really, was exaggerated again. It became very intense. And the first half year, I did what I always did with my mother. Like, you have a hard time, but look, see your grandchildren. They're doing great. Your life is okay. Look what you have. I was constantly saying this. But my mother, she constantly, when she was in our house, it was always about, but I'm suffering. And the children that were playing, and I was seeing, but look at the children. They're playing. They're looking forward to see you. But she couldn't see it. And it was in the summer holidays. We didn't hear anything about her for some months. And then I called her psychiatrist. What should I do? Phone her. So we had a telephone conversation. I think it was somewhere between July and August. It was our last telephone conversation. And I became more angry and more angry. I can be very tense. I see it also the same with my second daughter. She can also be very tense. She can also be very angry. I can become very angry. And when I became more and more angry, my mother saw more and more my father in me. So she was telling, she always compared me with my father, always. I was looking like my father. I had the same temperament as my father. So my father was 35 when he committed suicide, and I was 35 when I had my last conversation with my mother. It was very tough, and her psychiatrist said, that there wasn't any relationship possible anymore between us. So this was 1 year before her death. I didn't hear anything from her until an email in 2012. She had sent it to my sister and me that she was in an euthanasia procedure and she was waiting for the result. I discussed this with many people. What should I do? And also with, at that time, the education program head, or the head of the education program in my school, college. And, she said, stick on your job. You have your family. This is what you have to focus on now. So I did. However, on the 20th of April in 2012, I just gave a lecture analytical chemistry. Okay, it doesn't matter. But I had another lecture in the afternoon, and what I always do is just checking my emails. Do I have emails from students? And I saw an email from my wife. I opened it. Oh, you have to phone to the hospital because your mother is dead. I was completely in shock. I immediately ran to the head of our education program, and so everything exploded in my head. The suicide of my father, and yeah, that afternoon I was completely traumatized. I've always been traumatized, but yeah, this is another traumatization. I mean, one or two, it doesn't really matter in my society. So, yeah, this is my mother 2 years before she died, and this is her death certificate. So, it was her absolute choice. So I spoke with the physician who killed her. I couldn't do that immediately, but after a month I spoke with the physician who killed her, and he was absolutely certain that my mother didn't want to live anymore. I said, how can you be absolutely certain? Because I had conversations with your mother. So it was her absolute choice not to contact the children. This was a letter I received on the 20th of April, so in our mailbox. And yeah, I can just, it's in Dutch of course, but I will just translate it. So the euthanasia for psychic suffering I've written you about in my email has been granted to me by the team of Professor Wim Disselmans and was executed on April 19th, 2012 at the University Hospital in Brussels. I've given my body to science. And yes, indeed. But you have to know, yeah, they call this humanism. I always thought I was a humanist, but okay, they call this humanism at the Free University in Brussels. So I had to go to the mortuary, and there I had to sign the paper. In fact, I had to collect the body, but then, yeah, I needed a funeral director to let the body be transported from the mortuary to the service of experimental anatomy. So you need a relative to do these arrangements, because it was, of course, the last wish of my mother to give her body to science. So in fact, you can give your, so my mother was physically healthy, so she was chronically depressed, but she was physically healthy. So you can kill a physically healthy person in a university hospital, and then you ask, you don't have to contact the children, because it's the free will of the patient. But then you need a relative to let her body transport from the mortuary to the service of experimental anatomy. And they give you some papers what you have to do. They call this humanism. This was a letter I received in my mailbox. Okay. Also as a son, my sister, yeah, she ran away. She was in Africa, so I had to deal with everything. Do I still have time, Paul? Because a few minutes. This was what I found. My mother always made drafts of her letter. This was what I found in her bedroom. And I want to, I mean, okay, the physician who killed her, he was absolutely certain. Look what is here. Okay, it's like, because she didn't have contact with me anymore, or to be cut off from my daughters, she couldn't deal with that. So, and especially not, now she knows that she has a grandson. Also at that time, our son, he was 4 months old. So just imagine what I had to do. And that's not all, but okay. According to my mother, she did everything to recover. And it's because of love that she don't want to have contact any longer with her grandchildren, not to come into their lives again and then disappear again. So she feels frustration and sadness that she couldn't have any contact with my sister or me. And she gave up hope. She had many neurotic mechanisms, and they have predestinated her life, and she didn't want it to. There has become such a distance between us that there isn't any business relationship even to deal with my inheritance. How do you call it? Inheritance. So, and then, yes, she is stating that the tensions were too much between us, that she has given up all hope. So how can a physician, an oncologist with no psychiatric background, say that he is absolutely certain that my mother didn't want to live anymore? How can an oncologist say this? Yeah, and she missed a lot in her life, a connection with her parents, her own choice for study, a connection with her partner. She didn't have a connection with her children nor grandchildren. Was this really true? And it hurts her that she will not see them growing up. I hope that it will be okay with you in the future. She paid 2,500 euros. The organization, this is a bank account for the organizations. So thank you for the life-ending team who helped me. 2,500 euros. When you're going to the notary and you have to declare everything, like, okay, did your mother give money to organizations? Yeah, my mother gave money to the organization who helped to kill her, and they even pay taxes on this amount of money. It's it's human. Yeah, okay. I find this completely insanity, of course, but it's a bureaucratic system. So just, I don't care about the money, of course, but I just want to show you how this is working. So I began, maybe just a little bit. I began to write about it. It's another crazy story, but okay, that's maybe for another occasion. But I began to write about it, and what I want to point out, it's my point of view is now really the following. I'm following, in fact, Dr. Andres Wijnen ethical point of view. Dr. Andre Wijnen was, in fact, I thought he was the founder of the World Medical Association, and he's still, he died in 2007, but I still see him as a humanist. He survived the concentration camps, and his ethical point of view is really that euthanasia laws will eventually lead to economic euthanasia. And that's also now more and more my point of view. And I have been discussing this also this morning already with Henk. So no, I'm a little bit more academic, but it. So I really do believe that the World Medical Association, their resolution on, I'm not going to read it, you can read it, but their resolution is really now my ethics. So, and I think this is really important, I think. The right to decline medical treatment is a basic right of the patient, and the physician does not act unethically even if respecting such a wish results in the death of the patient. Because I have been arguing already the last days about what is good medicine. And I think, I'm going to stop this, but just the resolution on euthanasia from the World Medical Association, this is more my point of view now. Okay, I made a criminal complaint in Belgium. It's against X, it's not against the physician. I made a complaint to the board of physicians against the physician who killed my mother, but the criminal complaint is against X. So this is more also from a strategic point of view. And it's Mr. Samuel Vink who is helping me in this criminal complaint. I was also contacted by Alliance Defending Freedom, two lawyers, Mr. Robert Clark and Mr. Roger Kiska, during the legislation for euthanasia for children. And they said, yeah, we will help you to do a complaint for the European Courts of Human Rights in Europe. This is all still under investigation. So if you want to know more about it, I can just give you the details of where you can read everything, where you can read the complaint and with every detail. And I'm sure that Mr. Kiska and Mr. Clark would like to give you more information if you want so, but we can't say anything more than that it's still under investigation. However, I hoped, and I'm a little bit frustrated that it wasn't published yet. I received an email 1 week before I came to Australia. I have been working since I was contacted by a writer from the New Yorker in December. I have been working very, very intensively with this writer. She has written a piece of 9,000, 10,000 words about the case of my mother, but also other cases I've come up with in Belgium, very similar cases, in fact, like my case. And of course, it's not a top one priority that it is published yet. So I would have liked to give you all a copy, but they probably will still publish it, she promised. So in the near future, there will be an article about what I have been telling you. So thank you. If you want to contact me, this is my work address. And since the death of my mother, I began to Twitter. It's very strange that I began to Twitter since the death of my mother. But no, I'm usually retweeting scientific news and sometimes also about euthanasia. Thank you.